Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the video. Now, as you can see by the title below, this video is about the physical therapy process, the pre-physical therapy steps and requirements that you need leading up to the physical therapy applications. A lot of viewers of my channel asked me to make this video as I just finished the physical therapy applications a few weeks ago. As well as I just think this video would be very beneficial to have out there in the world for all the pre-physical therapy students, especially relevant here in the United States. I know some countries may have a little different requirements in here in the US, but this is especially relevant here in the United States. So the point of this video is to cover all the bases of what you need leading up to the physical therapy application. Because I know when I was looking it up, there's just a lot of information that you need. You need this requirement, you need this requirement, you need this requirement. So the point of this video is to hone all that in so that when you go and look at this school, look at this school, look at this school, you can just go right to that section. Oh, do I have this? Do I have this? And if you don't, maybe spend the next semester getting that. Or if you don't have it, then maybe just don't apply there because it's too much time to just put into that. And you can look at other schools. Or maybe you know you have everything, then you can just apply to that school. So that is the point of this video, is to save you time and inform you right here, right now, because I know a lot of you who are watching this video, maybe you're getting into college, you're looking into physical therapy school. Maybe you're already in college and you decided on physical therapy. Or maybe you're someone who's worked a while in the professional world and you came back and then you wanted to get into physical therapy. This is what you need to know. Now, all the areas I'm about to cover, when you actually do the physical therapy application, they'll have this listed, this listed, this listed, and you simply just click on it, enter the relevant information, okay? So starting off with observation hours, I really want to start off with this because I believe it is very important for you personally. Of course, the schools want you to have this requirement for observation hours, but for you personally, I believe it's very important, and this is why. When I first got into, possibly pursuing physical therapy, I really just like the idea of it. It really encompassed all my interests into one profession. That's what I liked so much about it. But it wasn't until I shadowed physical therapists extensively that I really knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I hope that you guys have gone through that and you really feel that way. If you haven't, I'd recommend you start off with the observation hours for sure, okay? So as far as what schools require for observation hours, I'd recommend a general rule of thumb would be 100 plus hours, 100 minimum. And of course, schools have different requirements, but that is a very good general rule of thumb to have. And they're very easy to get. There are a ton of settings. It's not so much about the quantity of hours, it is about the quality and how many different places that you do it at. So I'd recommend you do between 2 to 4 settings, somewhere in there. Just get your 100 plus hours between those 2 to 4 settings. And the settings, in case you aren't aware, just to name a few, there's outpatient, there's inpatient acute care, which is in the hospital. There is home health, there's skilled nursing facility, there's school physical therapy. So there's just a ton of different settings, but you want to get your 100 plus hours within 2 to 4 of those settings. Next up, let's talk about your major and how it actually doesn't really matter which major it is that you have. There are art majors, there are accounting majors, there's this major, there's that major, they all go to the PT program. And I would say the most popular ones that go into the PT program are exercise science, kinesiology, some variant of those two, biology, etc. But it doesn't really matter which major it is that you have, and this is why. The schools care about that you have a bachelor's degree before entering their program, and what it's called their prerequisite classes. Now, each school will have a different set of prerequisite classes, but for the most part, each school will have what I'm about to list off. So it's very important that you do your research to see if you have all the classes for this school or if you need to take additional classes, because again, each school will have maybe 2 or 3 additional classes that I don't list off. They'll have less classes, so just keep that in mind, okay? But the main core classes you'll need are 1 year physics, 1 year chemistry, 1 or 2 semesters of biology, again, depending on the school, 2 semesters of psychology, statistics, exercise physiology, and anatomy and physiology are really the main ones. Some schools require medical terminology, calculus, etc. Each school is different, so just keep that in mind when you do your research, but those are really the main core classes, and major doesn't matter. Moving along to your grade point average, your GPA, which I would say is the single most important factor that PT programs look for when deciding to give you an interview, if they do interview, or admitting you, okay? You already know how important grade point average is, your GPA, and to keep that as high as possible. But to give you all some context into the PT programs, they require you to at least have a 3.0 to be eligible. If you don't have 3.0, just throw your application right out the window. But that's just for eligibility, is a 3.0. I would say in order to be at least competitive, you want at least, I would say, a 3.5. Some schools may have higher averages, some lower, but at least a 3.5. The higher you have, the more competitive you have, the more leniency you'll have when it comes to the GRE that we'll talk about here. But GPA, keep that as high as possible. And when you enter all of your classes into PT-COS, which is the application system, they'll have a bunch of different sections for your GPA. So they'll have your cumulative, which is everything. They'll have your prerequisite, which is the classes that I just listed in the previous section. So keep that in mind, that those two are the main ones, your cumulative and your prerequisite. The prerequisites are very important, ladies and gentlemen, because those are basically the classes that provide the foundation for the material that you'll be covering in physical therapy school. So they want to see that you can do good in those classes so you have a good foundation. So GPA, keep it as high as possible, and you already knew that. And since we just mentioned it, now would be a good time to talk about the GRE, the dreadful, interesting graduate record exam, which is a standardized exam that you will need to take to apply to the PT program. Some schools actually don't require you to have it, but that's a very minor amount of schools, so just know that you will need to take it. Those of you who have taken it, you all know what I'm talking about when I say dreadful and interesting. Those of you who haven't taken it, best of luck to you. It's a very interesting exam. It tests your quantitative reasoning, your verbal reasoning, and as well as your writing skills. Most schools want you to have a 150 and a 3.5 respectively between those three sections. And going back to what I said earlier about leniency, if you have a high GPA, there's a lot more leniency for your score for the GRE. These two kind of balance each other out for the most part when it comes to most schools. So if you're gonna have high in both, awesome, you're a very competitive applicant. But if you have a higher GRE score, a lot more leniency when it comes to your GPA and vice versa. So just keep that in mind, the GRE, the graduate record exam. Now, before we move on any further, I want to note that GPA and GRE are the two main things that schools use. They have the greatest weight to them when it comes to admitting you or giving you an interview. Everything else are minor things, including the observation hours. However, I want you all to know that they do count for something, and they can make up a lot of ground for you as an applicant. And I say this because all schools want their program to be as diverse as possible. So that's really where you can set yourself apart with all these minor things. With that being said, let's move on to references. Schools are going to require you to have 0, which is very few of the schools, to 3 references. Most cases 2 to 3. And they're going to need to be from a physical therapist, an advisor, or a professor, as well as someone you've worked with in the real world, like a supervisor, a manager, etc. The manager and the professor, I can't really give you much advice about. That's completely on you. But for the physical therapist, I want to say that when you observe, when you shadow, do your best to connect with them. Chances are you're going to be shadowing a handful of physical therapists, so do your best to connect with all of them, so when it comes time to ask for references, they actually know you, they actually know who you are. They may ask for, your resume to add on to their knowledge of you, but they'll know you. I had the fortunate opportunity to shadow 8 physical therapists at my outpatient setting, 8 or more. I connected very well with each and every one of them. However, I spent the most time with a physical therapist whose name was Maria. I spent a lot of time with her, connected very well with her. Maria, if you're watching for some reason, thank you for everything. You were awesome. But I connected with her very well, so when it came time, I asked her to write me a letter. She was happy to do so, and she went out of her way to do a lot of things for me. She asked for my resume to add on to her knowledge of me, and it worked out very well. But when you are shadowing, do your best to connect with the physical therapist. Show them that you're serious about it. Take some initiative, ask some questions, be involved when you are shadowing. Connect with the patient. In the off time, connect with the physical therapist in a basis that is not PT. Ask them about their life. They'll talk about your life. Just have conversations with them. Connect with them in some way, shape, or form. Show initiative, and that's really what it comes down to. So when it comes time to ask for references, they'll be happy to write one for you. Moving on to your extracurriculars and your work history. This is where you can really have the control in setting yourself apart from the other applicants. There isn't really anything that's valued higher than all the others for most schools. However, they want to see that you were involved in a lot of things. For work history, maybe you have a variety of jobs that gave you different skills. For extracurriculars, maybe you volunteered in a lot of places. Maybe you helped out at this event, at that event, but really they want to see that you were involved in something. They want to see that you were committed to something, immerse yourself in a lot of things to just overall better yourself and better the community. So this is where you can really set yourself apart. Lastly, let's move on to essays. This is another area that can really set yourself apart. The extracurriculars, their work, you have complete control of. Something like references, yeah, that can really set you apart if they write you a good letter, but that's subject to the person writing the letter. These you have complete control of. So do your best with these essays, okay? Each and every year there is a main essay prompt. I'm not sure if it changes every few years, but I believe they keep it for a few years and then they change it. My year, they just changed it this year to what I thought was a harder prompt than it was last year. The essay for this year was, what is professionalism in the context of a DPT student? So at first you're just kind of like, how do I answer that? So tough, and it's only 4,500 characters, so it's tough to fit all your thoughts into 4,500 characters, and that's including spaces, by the way. But once I got started, it was very easy, it flowed well, it was smooth, and I believe I did a great job on that. So do your best with these essays. There is a main prompt, like I just mentioned, and then each school may not have their own supplementary prompts. For example, I applied to UW-Madison. They had 3 of their own prompts because they don't interview. Usually schools that interview most likely won't have additional prompts because they get to ask you all that at the interview. Somewhere like Madison, who doesn't interview, they need to get to know you through these essays and how you think and how you approach things. So just keep that in mind, okay? Some schools may have a lot of prompts like Madison, some schools may not have any prompts at all, but you're for sure gonna have a main prompts and then, depending on the school, the supplementary prompts. So this is where you can really set yourself apart once again. So be sure to do your best on these, and best of luck to you. And that is going to be the video, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you all watching. I hope that you all found it useful, informative, and beneficial. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I will do my best to get back to all of them. If you ever have any personal questions about this process that you don't want to leave in the comments, feel free to email me. I have my email in the description box below. I believe I covered everything. All of this was off the top of my head, so I may or may not have missed something, but if there's anything that I missed, again, leave it below. If there's anything that you have questions about or don't agree with, leave a comment below as well. We can talk about that. And again, all this is the basis for what you need to know. Each school is going to have slightly different requirements, or it could have slightly different requirements than another school. So it's up to you to do your research, but at the end of the day, this is what you need to know. These are the important things. So best of luck to you all. Best of luck to you all on the physical therapy journey, the application process, the pre-PT journey. I know it can be a daunting task at first, but once you get started, it goes on, it rolls, and it moves smoothly. Best of luck to you all. Tito checking out. Thank you so much for watching, guys.